That mother who says she made a huge sacrifice by choosing to buy a luxury home instead of having a third child. She tried to explain it all in a blog post for eldecor.com, and that has sparked a pretty fierce backlash. Rebecca Jarvis has her story.
Just like a scene straight out of the movie Knocked Up.
We're gonna have another baby.
It's a conversation parents around the world can relate to, whether or not to have another child. But this morning, this stay-at-home mom of two is coming under fire for sharing her story. In an article for Elle Decor titled, "I Made a Huge Sacrifice to Buy My Dream Home," Sarah Scott writes about choosing a fully loaded luxury home instead of having a third child. Certain sacrifices had to be made for this dream to come true for us, the first being that we can only afford to have 2 children. Scott then writes about she and her husband's change of heart, wanting another child after buying that dream home. "My uterus literally aches despite the fact that logic suggests we can't afford it right now." Scott writes about additional financial sacrifices that third child would entail, that she'd have to return to teaching, and our annual vacation would disappear because we would need to sell the timeshare to make up the difference. The backlash has been fierce, with one person commenting, "You really have no idea how 99% of this country lives, do you?" And another telling her, "Get over your perfectly scripted life."
Having it all is a relative concept. To the outside world, this woman appears to have it all, but she doesn't feel that way. Acceptance of all types of families is the only way that will end the parenting wars.
And Rebecca joins us now, along with Erica Suter, our parenting expert. And Erica, let me begin with you. We saw some of the comments online. Here are a couple more. One woman, Valerie, said, "No one as shallow as this author should ever have more than 2 children. 2 is probably too many." Another woman, Denise, said, "This is so disgusting in so many ways." Boy, this story struck a nerve.
It has, but look, most parents do weigh the pros and cons of having more children. The problem with this particular essay, it shows that the writer is operating in a bubble of wealth. She's not acknowledging that most people in this country, these aren't even problems. Most people in the world, these aren't even problems. So it also sets up a new aspect of the mommy war. It's the overprivileged mom versus the not so privileged mom, and it really alienates her.
Well, it sure seemed like that. Let's get some baseline financial facts down here. What are the costs of an additional child?
Clearly a huge decision, a huge responsibility. It goes well beyond the finances. But on the financial side of things, George, right now, if you have a child for those first 18 years of life, that child will cost you $245,000. Now, the interesting thing is once you start having additional children, the cost per child goes down. Once you have 2 children, the cost per child goes down 25%. When you have 3 children, the cost per child goes down 22% because you can share. There's hand-me-downs involved. The cost of housing is less, child care, and then for many families, you can actually buy in bulk, so it ends up costing a little less per child.
And that's just one of many factors to consider, Eric. It's such a personal decision for any family, but a lot of people do struggle with, the emotional back and forth as well.
Right. I mean, there's some important things to consider. Number one, put your complaints in perspective. If you're trying to decide whether to buy a summer home, but your neighbors or your friends can't afford their mortgage, hold back on your complaints a little bit. And you might also want to try to find people who can relate to your particular struggle. Not everyone in your social circle will be able to, so find those people who won't be annoyed with those complaints. And lastly, and most importantly, you're not alone. There are 85 million moms in the United States alone. Someone does share your struggle, so never feel that you're totally alone in your complaint.
But don't necessarily write about it.
Don't write about it. Right.